why he Sikkha for that that long? Can you explain a little bit why
I have been studying Dhamma for almost 40 years, as Ms. Malila said. I start from when I was young. I was kind of curiosity. It's my curiosity why we have to born, and are there any special purpose for us to live, and what happened if we pass away from this life. And moreover, when I visit places that related to Buddhism, they usually build it in very, very big and complicated and very beautiful buildings. I wonder why and how important the Dhamma or the teaching of the Gautama Buddha is. It must be very, very important and very, very, very important to people. That's why many people appreciate it. And then they build just such a gigantic monument, places across the world, not only in one country. So that is the point where I start study Dhamma, and I almost be able to say that I'm almost grown up with this Dhamma group. I start study Dhamma since I was 6, maybe 6 or 7. Yeah,
really young.
6 or 7, and well, as I said, I usually have a lot of questions because of my curiosities. I have a lot of questions, and whenever I ask the group, they always have a good answer for me, and those answers really make sense if they try to explain it to me. And every time I ask, when I have more knowledge about Dhamma, they teach me more details of it. At the beginning, when I don't have any knowledge about Dhamma at all, they explain very simple to me. However, once I developed more the knowledge on Dhamma, they give me more in details. And until now, 40 years, almost 40 years, there's still more from them to teach me. There are lots of things that I'm very excited to learn from this group. So I hope I can transfer some of my knowledge that I have been studying for almost 40 years to all of you today. For today's class, actually, I only expect it to be the introduction or something like that, because at this time I assume that most of you don't have any foundation. So I will explain it very simple, so all participants may be able to understand it easily. However, once you have more knowledge about Dhamma, then we go into more details, and it takes time, and be patient. And one thing that I can promise you, your patience and your time that you spend on studying Dhamma will reward you gratefully. Okay. So whenever you're ready, I'm ready to begin the class.
Do you think we can start now?
We have around 20 participants, right?
Yes, I think we start.
Okay.
Okay.
So please.
Okay. So the topic today that I'm going to discuss with you is communication language and Dhamma language. This is the topic of today's discussion. First, before I go into details, I have to explain you about the important notes. Important note, Dhamma provided in this presentation is simple and not Kampira or profound. People must continuously study Dhamma, or else it will lead to Mahatapa, Niraya, or hell, because it is Micchatitti, or not following the Buddha's teaching. If any provided content contrast with Dhamma 84,000 Dhammakhandha, please refer to Dhamma 84,000 Dhammakhandha only. Okay, this is the important note. Okay, now we go into presentation. First, I'll explain about the Buddhist time scale. So, what is the Buddhist time scale and what is the difference between Buddhist time scale and our time scale? So, by understand this, we will understand how hard and how much effort that we have to put into Dhamma study. Okay, for Buddhist time scale, the key word, the one word that we usually mention is asankhaya. Asankhaya. Imagine if there was a solid mountain, 10 miles high and 10 miles across in all direction. Every 100 years, a Deva wipes the top of the mountain with a fine cloth. The time that requires for the whole mountain to wear away is one asankhaya. That is very, very, very long time. Okay, this is one asankhaya. And now let's imagine how tall is one 10 miles high mountain. Okay, Everest, the tallest mountain located in Nepal, is only 8,846 meters, or half a mile. No, sorry. It's 5 miles. So we need 2 Everest mountain for 10 miles mountain, 10 miles high mountain. We need 2 Everest. Okay, so we go next. What if we comparing to the tallest building we have? If we look at the Great Pyramid, Giza, it's only 100 something meters. Eiffel Tower, 300 meters. Empire State Building in New York, 400 meters. Petronas Tower in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, 400 meters. Taipei 101, 400 something meters. Former World Trade Center in New York, 400 meters. Willis Tower, Chicago, 400 something. And also CN Tower in Toronto is almost 500 meters. If you compare it to the tallest one, Burj Khalifa in Dubai, 800 meters high, we need 20 buildings of Burj Khalifa for 10 miles high mountain. Okay. We go next. If we compare to the layer of our atmosphere, you can see that for 16 kilometers or 10 miles high, it's above commercial aircraft, but a bit lower than supersonic plane. It's very high. So imagine that every 100 years, they will come with fine cloth, wipe the top of the mountain. And the time that requires for the whole mountain to wear away, that is one asankhaya. That is very, very, very long time. So how much time that Gautama Buddha needed to enlighten and have a Dhamma to teach us? Okay, we go next. For Panyatika Buddha, which is Gautama Buddha, this Gautama Buddha need 20 asankhaya, and and 100,000 kappa. I mean 20 of 10 miles high mountain. Every 100 years with fine cloth, wipe the top of the mountain until those mountains wears away. 20 of those mountains wear away. And 100,000 more lives that needed for Gautama Buddha to gather the knowledge for the enlightenment and acquire Dhamma to teach us. That is very, very, very long time. If we comparing to our knowledge today, the beginning of our communication language, which is the origin of human knowledge, including science and everything we have today, only 34,000 years before Buddhist era, only 34,000 years. This one is countable, but 20 asankhaya and 100,000 kappa is almost uncountable for us in our unit of time. Okay, if we comparing to our education, for no education you require 0 years. For elementary school, 6 years, high school, 12 years, bachelor degree, 16 years, master degree, 18, and PhD, 24 years. Only 24 years for highest education that we have. Comparing to 20 asankhaya and 100,000 kappa is almost uncomparable. So the knowledge that we have comparing to the knowledge that Buddha have when the Buddha enlightened is also uncomparable. That's why our knowledge cannot be used to use to understand Dhamma. But how can we understand Dhamma? I will explain in later in this presentation. Okay?
Mr. Napong, you seem talk right. We have graduate for about 18 or 20 years, but we cannot get Sikkha in order to enlightenment, isn't it? Because we have to use many years. We can graduate master degree or postdoc, doctor or postdoc, but for the enlightenment, for our life, we cannot find the person that become arahanta, isn't it?
That depends. But anyway, none of us can live as long as 20 asankhaya.
Yes.
That's obvious, right? However, normally, let's assume that every one of us as a human, we have 100 years. So only these 100 years, how should we spend it? I mean, for the knowledge that we have, if I count it as at the beginning of the communication language, because our knowledge will be able to start if our human knowledge should be start at the beginning of our communication language. So to acquire all of knowledge that people have today, we assume 34,000 years for human knowledge. All human knowledge, we use only 34,000 years. But the knowledge that the Gautama Buddha have for us requires 20 asankhaya and 100,000 kappa to acquire those knowledge and summarize it and become Dhamma and teaching us. That's how long it takes to enlighten and to acquire Dhamma and to get those Dhamma and teaching us. I try to explain that. I try to point out that it's the time that
So long.
required to acquire those knowledge. It's far different. It's almost uncomparable from 34,000 years for the human knowledge and 20 asankhaya and 100,000 kappa of the knowledge of Gautama Buddha. Okay, now.
So we have to patient to Sikkha.
Yes, that is why you have to be patient and diligently study Dhamma continuously, because with a lot of information like this and only 100 years that we have, you have to put our best effort to understand it. I'm not going to say that everyone can enlighten, can go to Nirvana within one life, but we have to continuously study or Sikkha. I will explain more in details, okay?
We have to accumulate. If we cannot enlightenment in this life, we can accumulate our knowledge of Dhamma.
Yes, in the next classes, there will be people or Dhammacharya to explain more in details how that we how we gather Dhamma information from Sikkha and how we store those information in our Chitta, Cetasika, and Rupa, and how can we transfer these knowledge through lifetimes.
Yeah.
And by this function and by these functions and activities, that makes our continuously study through lives possible. Okay. They will explain more in detail for next classes, right? Okay.
Are you waiting?
So I go next. On the 5th week after Gautama Buddha is Patamapi Samputo, or enlightenment. Mahamarathiraj came to ask Samma Sambuddha or Gautama Buddha to enter Parinibbana by saying that this is the right time for Samma Sambuddha, the Gautama Buddha, to enter Parinibbana. Samma Sambuddha, or the Buddha, said that the Tathagata will enter Parinibbana if the 4 Buddha Parisa, which are Bhikkhu, Bhikkhuni, Upasaka, and Upasika, have acquired the following characteristic. 1. The 4 Buddha Parisa must well understand the Tipitaka 84,000 Dhammakhandha. 2nd, the 4 Buddha Parisa must be able to correctly present 84,000 Dhammakhandha. And the 3rd one is the 4th Buddha Parisa must be able to correct those who condemned or misunderstand the Tipitaka 84,000 Dhammakhandha. This is very important. Okay. And who will be our teacher when Gautama Buddha enter Parinibbana? One of the sentences in the 84,000 Dhammakhandha said that Yovo anantamaya thamoja vinayo jatesito panyato sovo mamachayeta mamachayena satta, translated as in communication language as Dhamma and Vinaya Gautama Buddha have pointed out, formulated for you. That will be your teacher when Gautama Buddha enter Parinibbana. This is why we have to study our Sikkha, Dhamma, and Vinaya, which will be our teacher when Gautama Buddha enter Parinibbana. Okay, that's why we have to have these kind of classes. So how can Dhamma travel through time? We have already explained about time that requires for Gautama Buddha needs to enlightenment. we have already go through who will be our teacher if Gautama Buddha enter Parinibbana. And now we will go to see next, how can Dhamma travel through time? Okay, Dhamma travel through time through 4 Buddha Parisa, which are Bhikkhu, Bhikkhuni, Upasaka, and Upasika. If we count from the day that Buddha entered Parinibbana, it's around 2,564 years. If we roughly calculate that one generation of the person is 100 years, we need almost 26 generations of Buddha Jatuparisa, or 4 Buddha Parisas, that they continuously doing that job as Gautama Buddha mentioned before, right? Those 3 responsible of Buddha Jatuparisa, or 4 Parisas. Okay. Now it is our generation. Ms. Malirat, could you explain more for me about this picture?
For the right hand side, you will see our teacher. He is our like founder of the Dhamma for us. Our Dhammacharya or our Dhammacharya is studied from our teacher Tipitaka Dhammacharya Suchat Nakon. He has studied by looking at Tipitaka, and then he found that some things from the thing that other people said, study and learning from one person to another person is not, you cannot think by yourself. You have to learning from Tipitaka only, because Dhamma is not something that you can find out by yourself, but you can find out from when you study, when you Sikkha from Tipitaka only. And the one that we can would like to introduce is Mrs. Nongnut Thanadamrongsak, who is my sister-in-law. He is the one that I can say that this is the best student of Tipitaka Dhammacharya Suchat Nakon, because she can study and she knowing that what is Dhamma saying, what is in the from the core of Abhidhamma. She can pick out the Abhidhamma, many on Dhamma, and then many keywords. Then she write the Dhamma manual, and not only Dhamma manual, she has also built about at least nine temples for our group, that we have conduct many prayers in the world of Vatta and Vivatta. And what is Vatta and Vivatta? The Vatta is something like that you will be born and reborn, and you have life and do your life for baby, then you learning and you grow up and you have marriage, and then you find for your money. That is called Sanya 3. And then we going to learning Dhamma. This is the thing that we call Sanya 4. And Mrs. Nongnut Thanadamrongsak can know the core of the Dhamma, follow that Ajahn Suchat Nakon teaching. Then she can be our model, role model for Sotapanna. We don't know that someone can enlightenment or not, but we know that if you learning Dhamma well or learning Sikkha is enough, you can be the one that we can call Ariya person. Then how we can define that? If you have Sikkha Miss Nongnut, or now she has new nickname. We call our Dhammacarya or our group call her Than Angka Kuna Arya Dhamma Sotapanna. She always teach me about Dhamma. I don't know that I have Sikkha about 18 year now, but I don't know that what is the core of Dhamma. But now, only 1 year after my sister-in-law passed away, I found that Dhamma language and world language, communication language, is not the same. Sikkha and learning is not the same too. You know, when you learning, it's only like design. But you Sikkha, you have to accumulate from past life. Someone you have to accumulate for about 1,000 life or 100,000 life. I don't know. But for Than Angka Kuna, I think that she has accumulated many before this life, because she can do and she will do. She willing to do. No one asked her to do. Why she have to build at least 9 temple, Vatta and Vivatta? Why? But she do it. She not only do that, she have write the manual, Dhamma manual, and not only Dhamma manual, she have write it in English, in Chinese, in Indian, by using other that like Sankiti, help her to prepare Dhamma manual for other people and for me. I have learned Dhamma after Than Angka 1 year. She helped me in making a writing Dhamma manual in order to help other people. For me, I don't think about other things. I don't care for other people. But Than Angka helped me to tell me that when you Sikkha, it's not learning. After you Sikkha, you feel, you want, you really willing to teaching, to give other the way of Dhamma. So now, like me, like other Dhammacarya, like Than Tipitaka Dhammacarya Suchanako, help us and willing to teach other people in the world in order to know that what Dhamma, what our Paramattha saying, what our Paramattha tell us, what is enlightenment. It is not only knowledge, it is not theory, but it is the Abhidhamma. We will know the reason, not only resolve. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Malirat. Now, as the Gautama Buddha already mentioned that for Buddha Parisa, we have 3 major roles, which are the 4 Buddha Parisa must well understand the Tipitaka, 84,000 Dhammakhandha. That's why we have to study or Sikkha Dhamma. And the second one is for Buddha Parisa must be able to correctly present 84,000 Dhammakhandha. That's why we have this kind of class, and that's why we have to travel around the world and also building temple across this many continents in this world to disseminate the Dhamma. This is the second role of Buddha Parisa, Buddha Jatuparisa. And the third one is for the four Buddha Parisa must be able to correct those who condemned or misunderstand the Tipitaka, 84,000 Dhammakhandha. This is our responsibility in these generations. It is our generations that it is our responsible. Okay, this is our activities. We study Dhamma or Sikkha Dhamma. Here, our group Sikkha Dhamma, study Dhamma, and we build. Until now, we have 10 temple, Vatta or Vivatta across the world. We have 3 in Thailand. We have in Vatta Vivatta in India, in United States, in Australia, in Sri Lanka, in Uruguay, in Russia, many countries. And not only the temple, we also visit and go to present and explain Dhamma across in every continent of this world, including Antarctica, which is almost inhabitable for people. Okay, this is the picture of us, our group, that doing the responsible of Buddha Jatuparisa or for Buddha Parisa to keep and to maintain the teaching of Gautama Buddha, doing our best for the responsible of for Buddha Parisa. Okay, for the next, not only us, but you are also one of Buddha Parisa. That's why you study, you pay a lot of your attention to Sikkha and study Dhamma. So Dhamma is also it's also you're responsible to study and Sikkha Dhamma too. Okay. I remind you again that the responsibility of for Buddha Parisa is 3. We have 3 responsibility. First one is for Buddha Parisa must well understand the Tipitaka 84,000 Dhammakhandha. And the second one is for Buddha Parisa must be able to correctly present 84,000 Dhammakhandha. And the third one is for Buddha Parisa must be able to correct those who condemn or misunderstand Tipitaka 84,000 Dhammakhandha. Okay. For Dhamma, now we go to Dhamma 84,000 Dhammakhandha that I mentioned a lot in this presentation. For Dhamma Vinaya at the beginning, 84,000 Dhammakhandha staged together is not classified. Later on, Dhamma Vinaya 84,000 Dhammakhandha is classified into 2 groups. The first one is Vinaya 21,000 Dhammakhandha, and the second one is Dhamma 63,000 Dhammakhandha. The presentation is incorrect, but it's 63,000 Dhammakhandha. And for Vinaya 21,000 Dhammakhandha, let's go to Vinaya Pariyati Pitaka 21,000 Dhammakhandha. And for Dhamma 63,000 Dhammakhandha divided into 2 groups. The first one is Sutta Pariyati Pitaka 21,000 Dhammakhandha. And the second one is Abhidhamma Pariyati Pitaka 42,000 Dhammakhandha. You see the color. For the last layer in 3 groups, Vinaya, Suttanta, and Abhidhamma. Vinaya and Suttanta, I use the color gray because these 2 groups, Vinaya 21,000 Dhammakhandha and Sutta 21,000 Dhammakhandha is the result, is is not the cause. They are not the cause. They are the result. For the cause that explain why the result happened resides in Abhidhamma 42,000 Dhammakhandha in the green color. So by understand everything that happened in this world, not including only our world as a human being, but including other living in 31 planes. Abhidhamma explain everything, including explain everything, not only human, but also in 31 planes, and the way that we, in our cyclic of existence, become enlightened or parinibbana, or go to attain that sotapanna at the beginning, as the beginning. Okay. For the next, I will show you in Abhidhamma also have a more detail in that. Abhidhamma divided into two groups. One is Paramattha Dhamma, another one is Panyati Dhamma. Under Paramattha Dhamma, it consists of Citta 121, Cetasika 52, and Rupa 28. And these three groups will understand these three groups will lead you to Nirvana 1. Okay. For Panyati Dhamma in blue, it categorized into two groups, Atta Panyati and Satta Panyati. If I explain it easily, Paramattha Dhamma is the real things, and Panyati Dhamma is the name that you call that real thing. For example, if you have a cup of coffee, you call it a cup of coffee, but the cup and the coffee, that is the real one. You might call it in English as a cup of coffee. If we call it in Thai, we call it Gao Kafe. And cup of coffee or Gao Kafe is Panyati, is the name that we use to call that object. And that object can be compared as Paramattha Dhamma. Okay, to understand everything in Dhamma and the teaching of the Gautama Buddha in 84,000 Dhammakhandha, we have to well understand Citta 121, Cetasika 52, and Rupa 28. If we comparing to learning language, Citta 121, Cetasika 52, Rupa 28 will be as same as alphabet in languages. First, when you want to learn that language, you have to remember the alphabet first. That's why we requires you to familiarize and be able to recite Citta 121, Cetasika 52, and Rupa 28 as the beginning. Because furthermore, we go into more details. We go back and based on Citta 121, Cetasika 52, and Rupa 28. We always refer to these groups. We always refer back to these groups. That is very important, as same as you know the alphabet when you learn the language. Okay. Next. Okay. I want to show you this one. This is the important, that's why, sorry. Okay, this one. Abhidhamma is the cause, and Sutta and Vinaya is the result. By understanding these two, Vinaya and Suttanta, you must know Abhidhamma. You must know the reasons why these two things happen. But we cannot use our knowledge, which I mentioned before, that all human knowledge, we need only 34,000 years to get it. But for the teaching of Gautama Buddha, from the result, from the cause here, and including this, the Gautama Buddha need 20 asankhaya and 100,000 lives. That is very, very long time. That's why we have to well understand here. And by doing so, you have to first be able to recite Chitta, Cetasika, and Rupa. This is one of the two crucial things for beginning Dhamma study. The first step for Dhamma study is to recite Chitta 121, Cetasika 52, and Rupa 28. The second step for Dhamma study is to be able to identify communication language and Dhamma language. These communication language and Dhamma language, why it might be a bit confused and a bit hard at the beginning. But if you continuously Sikkha Dhamma and study, you'll be able to identify the differentiate be able to easily identify and differentiate communication language and Dhamma language easily. For communication language is the language that has been used by people, not only involving the enlightenment of Gautama Buddha, but when Gautama Buddha was Bodhisattva was using communication language. Communication language cannot use for understanding Dhamma. This is important. Okay. For communication language, a bit more in details that in the teaching of Gautama Buddha, we have altogether 31 planes. Communication language has been using in 29 planes, except Asanya Satta Tewa, Akasananjayatana, Akasananjayatana Tewa, Vinyananjayatana Tewa, Akinchanyayatana Tewa, Neva Sanyana Sanyayatana Tewa. Okay, for 29 planes, including animal. That's why I show you example. Is one of the most common sound and made by cow is moo. That is cow communication language. They also have theirs. We have ours, and animal have their communication language also. Okay. For Dhamma language, after the enlightenment of Gautama Buddha, the Gautama Buddha redefined Makhatha language that people was using as communication language at that time to be Dhamma language. Therefore, each word that presented in the teaching of Gautama Buddha cannot be translated by dictionary. Instead, to understand each word presented in the teaching of Gautama Buddha, we must continuously study the teaching of Gautama Buddha. How Gautama Buddha redefined that words. The meaning is completely different from the translation that you use from dictionary. Okay. Yeah. I show you in diagram to give you a better picture. We have communication language here. For human, we have English, German, India, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Thai language, Myanmar language, Cambodia language, etc. We have to translate by dictionary. This translate to Makhatha language. First, and then with the enlightenment of the Gautama Buddha, Makhatha language is redefined by the enlightenment of Gautama Buddha and turns communication language into Dhamma language. And from Dhamma language, this can lead us to Nirvana and development of ourselves to improve ourselves and come to Nirvana at one point of the time, at one point in time. Okay. From communication language, from whatever country you are in, what communication language that you are using, we translate our communication language by dictionary back to Makata language. And then from Makata language, with the enlightenment of Gautama Buddha, we use the same word, but redefined it by the teaching of Gautama Buddha and turns the same word into Dhamma language. If I give you one example, if in English, we use the word greedy, translate by dictionary into Makata language as lopa, and lopa translate by dictionary back to English is greedy, translate by dictionary lopa, and then lopa from communication language to lopa, which also pronounced as lopa in Dhamma language. Now, this lopa is different. This lopa means greedy in English, but lopa in Dhamma language will consist of lopa citta 8. As I mentioned before, I mentioned to you before that everything we mention, everything we study in Dhamma, we also refer to Citta 121, Cetasika 52, and Rupa 28. And for Lopa and Lopa here, Lopa in Dhamma language refer to Lopa Citta 8, means that there is 8 of Lopa Citta. The first one, it's called Sommanassa Sahakatang Titi Kata Sampayutang Asankharikang Kama Vajara Akusala Lopa Mula Citta. This is the name of the first Lopa Citta. The second one, Sommanassa Sahakatang Titi Kata Sampayutang Sankharikang Kama Vajara Akusala Lopa Mula Citta. This is the name of the second Lopa Citta. The third one, Somanasa Sahakatang Titi Kata Vipayutang Asankharikang Kama Vajara Akusala Lopa Mula Citta. This is the name of the third Lopa Cetasika. And the fourth one is Somanasa Sahakatang Titi Kata Vipayutang Sankharikang Kama Vajara Akusala Lopa Mula Citta. This is the fourth name, the name of the fourth Lopa Citta. This is why it's important that you have to be able to recite Citta 121, Cetasika 52, and Rupa 28. This first requirement. And the second requirement, as we explaining this to you, that you must be able to identify the difference between communication language and Dhamma language. This is very two important parts to begin in Dhamma study or Sikkha Dhamma. As a human, we use language for communication. This is common, right? As a human, we use language for communication, obviously. Okay. What happened? With the enlightenment of Gautama Buddha, the same language that we use, not only to not go through communication anymore, but with the enlightenment of Gautama Buddha, use the same language, redefines it. By the enlightenment of the Gautama Buddha leads us to Nirvana. This is why I really emphasize it, that you have to be able to identify the difference between communication language here that we're using and Dhamma language here. By failing to do so, you cannot understand the teaching of Gautama Buddha. That's why it's very important. For summary from this class, you'll know first one, time scale in Buddhism. The second one, who will be our teacher when Gautama Buddha enter Parinibbana. And the third one is Buddha Jatuparisa, or 4 Buddha Parisa, 3 responsibilities. Because not only us, but you are also Buddha Jatuparisa, and we have to taking care of Buddhism together, and we have to make sure that we deliver correctly Buddhism to our next generations. It's not only us, but we need you to join us and handle this responsibility together. And the fourth one is the beginning step to study Dhamma, which are very important two steps. The first one, you should be able to recite Citta 121, Cetasika 52, and Rupa 28. This one is very important. And the second one is you must be able to differentiate the communication language and Dhamma language. This will be end of this class. And for the next class, I will go through more in details about the communication language and Dhamma language, and also Citta 121, Cetasika 52, and Rupa 28. We'll go into more detail. We go slowly at the beginning, but once the foundation is solid, you understand the rest of the Dhamma. You will see that the rest of Dhamma is not that difficult. But first, before we going anywhere, we need a solid foundation. That's why we go slow at the beginning. We need you to recite Citta 121, Cetasika 52, Rupa 28 first, and then try to identify and differentiate the communication language and Dhamma language. And the next class, as I mentioned, I'll explain more in details for you. Okay.
I add more for this. I ask more for this. I have 17 years to only can differentiate between Dhamma language and communication language for 17 years. So you all have to patient and have to recite. Only recite first. Recite for Citta 121 and Cetasika 52 and Rupa 28, and then we can go deeper Dhamma. But if you don't recite for the only alphabet for the Dhamma, you don't recite this, we cannot go farther, isn't it, Mr. Dathong?
Yes, as I mentioned, that it seems that we are going very, very slow, but according to my experience, almost 40-year experience, for this slow beginning to make solid foundation for you, it will pay back as benefit. The rest of Dhamma you will be able to understand easily. But for understand the rest easily, you need a solid foundation. That's at the beginning. That's why I do insist that these two topics is very, very important. First one, recite Citta 121, Cetasika 52, and Rupa 28. And the second one, be able to identify the differentiate between communication language and Dhamma language. And we will help you through this process. Don't worry.
Yeah, but thank you.
One thing that we need all of you is to be patient and go slow at the beginning with us. And I promise you, it will pay back. And you will appreciate it, definitely.
Like you and me that have been appreciated from Dhamma. We very happy for this.
Yes, and at this time we do our job, our responsibility as Buddha Jatuparisa. This is our responsibility that we study. We have to correctly present it, and we have to explain if other people misunderstand it. It's our responsibility. It's not only our study, and if we keep it to ourselves, we don't take care of those Buddha Parisa responsibility. We are also wrong ourselves. So we have to follow the responsibility that Gautama Buddha gives to us. At this by following this responsibility, by accepting this responsibility, that's why we be able to transfer the teaching of Gautama Dhamma through times. There are 25 generations that doing this responsible for us. That's why we have, this is our generation. We have to take this responsibility and follow the teaching of Gautama Buddha and to deliver it to the next generations.
27
Sure. And more.
and more. Yes.
And more. Yeah. And we also need you guys.
Every generation have to help.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah, because we cannot do it by ourselves.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much for your participation, and see you next class. I'll go into more details about communication language and Dhamma language and Chitta 121, Cetasika 52, and Rupa 28. Until next time, take care. Bye.
สาธุ
Sadhu.
ครับ
Thank
Sadhu, sadhu,
Sadhu
sadhu.
for